All right, in this first chapter, we're going to get you started with Corel Draw X4. And that means in this first lesson of the chapter, we'll be launching the application and exploring the welcome screen that greets you. After that, we'll talk about what's new or enhanced in Corel Draw X4, get a good overview before we start using those tools as we move through the other lessons in this title. Then we'll open up a file so we can tour the new user interface. There are a few changes you need to know about. After that, we'll talk about vector and bitmap images. It's really important you understand the differences between those two types of images and their advantages, disadvantages, and how to work with each in Corel Draw. After that, we'll be creating a brand new file from scratch and then compare that to the next lesson where we create a new file by using one of the many templates you have at your disposal here in Corel Draw X4. The last lesson in this chapter will be all about saving your work. Very important that when you put a lot of time and energy into a project, you know how to save it properly. But right now, we can't do any of that until we launch the application. So here I am on my desktop. I'm going to go down to my Start button down here in the bottom left corner and give it a click. By default, there's no shortcut icon on your desktop. That's not created during the installation process. Of course, in Windows, there are ways to create your own shortcuts if you wanted to do that. Now you can see here from my most recently used list that Corel Draw X4 is one of my most recently used applications, but if you've never used it before, it will not show up here. So you've got two other options. One is to go down to All Programs. Just hover over All Programs. You don't even need to click on it, and it will expand to show you all of your folders, including Corel Draw Graphics Suite X4. And when you click on that folder, it opens it up to display the applications in the suite. Notice that some of mine are highlighted and some aren't. The ones that are highlighted are the ones I still haven't used. The ones that are not highlighted I have used before, like Corel Draw X4. There it is right there. Now, if you've ever seen any of my other titles, you know my favorite way to find an application is just to come down here to the Start search field. Instead of browsing through folders and lists, just come down here, type in Corel, for example, and you'll see all the Corel programs, the history, you'll see the files you've used that have Corel in them. But right at the top here under Programs is Corel Draw X4. How about that? So all I have to do is click on it to launch the application. So this is going to launch Corel Draw X4. If this is your first time, you'll see the welcome screen. This is not my first time, but I still see the welcome screen because I've left a checkbox selected down below that always shows the welcome screen at launch. Now the only difference is the very first time I launched Corel Draw X4, my welcome screen was not in the Quick Start section. Notice over here on the right hand side I've got some tabs. Quick Start, What's New, Learning Tools, a gallery, and updates. So I can go to those sections just by clicking the tab. Now, if this is your first time launching the application, you don't see this Quick Start screen. What you see is the welcome screen. So I'm going to click Welcome right up here under Quick Start. Closes up the booklet. It's kind of like an electronic version of a booklet. And you can see here it does say Welcome across the top. And down below, I've got access to Quick Start, What's New, Learning Tools, Gallery, and Updates, all those tabs that we still see over here on the right-hand side. Now the difference is when I hover over these like Quick Start, look over here on the right-hand side. When I hover over Quick Start without clicking on it, it does say this is where I go to quickly perform basic tasks like opening an existing document, starting a brand new one from a blank page or from a template. As I move down to What's New without clicking on that, here's where I go to see what's new in X4, see examples of how you can use the new features. You've got some learning tools as well, so you can get access to them by clicking Learning Tools here or the Learning Tools tab. There's a gallery where you're going to see some inspiring projects created with Corel Draw Graphics Suite. There's a couple of links to websites that will give you a cool idea of what you can do with Draw X4. And then, of course, there's updates down below where you can choose to receive messages about any updates, new tutorials, or any other content for that matter. Notice right here, too, there is a little button that allows you to get a workspace tour. Now, we're going to be doing that as we move through this chapter, but you could go right to this little link here to get a tour of the new user interface, and it'll show you how to use the basic tools and features, give you a little bit of insight, too, from design professionals. Kind of neat. But let's go up to Quick Start and give it a click. So that opens up that section. You can see how it's flipped open like a booklet. Quick Start is the tab that you see here. And from this screen, if you choose to always have the welcome screen launch whenever you launch Corel Draw X4, well, right away you can see you can do everything possible, like open up recent files that you've worked on. They're listed here under Open Recent. If this is your first time, you won't see anything here under Open Recent. You've also got a button to open any other file that you maybe haven't worked on in a while. It doesn't show up on the recent list. You can create a new blank document or create a new one by getting a head start using one of the templates right from here. So pretty much anything you need to do in Corel Draw can be done from this quick start section of your welcome screen. Now if you want to move on to another tab, you just click the tab over here on the right. Let's go to Learning Tools, and when I click on that, notice the other two flip over to the left hand side just like I flipped open a book. And over here I've got video tutorials, something called Corel Tutor. It's been around for a long time, so you can get some great tutorials online using Corel Tutor. Insights from the experts, that's kind of neat. Depending on how you're going to be using Corel Draw, there may be experts out there who have already done what you're hoping to do. So instead of reinventing the wheel, check out their insights. There's tips and tricks and a link to a history. So there's more resources that are available online, obviously, and they are updated periodically. You see that information right there. If we go over to the gallery, here's where you'll see some links to, for example, Igor's t-shirts.blogspot.com, some cool graphics. Every time you open this up, it's going to show you something different. When I go back to Quick Start, for example, and come down to the gallery, you can see I've got a couple of different samples showing up here. So every time you come back to this section, it just changes up and gives you some maybe inspiration for different kinds of things you can do with Corel Draw. I think this is really cool. It looks very realistic, but all created in Corel Draw. Notice there's a link here to cdwgraphics.com, and you can click that link. It'll launch your default browser, take you right there to get some more inspiration. The last tab is the Updates tab, and you can see here you can get some news. Visit the CorelDraw.com community. So there are others using Corel Draw that you can ask questions and get some inspiration from them as well. You can also sign up for the Graphics by Design newsletter by clicking this link. So lots of options to help you get comfortable, become an expert using Corel Draw. Now the one tab I have not clicked on yet is the What's New tab. And that's where we're going to go in the next lesson to talk about what's new or enhanced here in Corel Draw X4.